What's going on, vinyl community and KISS Army? Welcome to another video with the Record Spinner, and welcome to the second episode of Council of the Elder, a series discussing the hottest band in the world with KISS fans and people in the KISS sphere. This second episode consists of my interview with Wayne Johnson of Rockaway Records. Now, Wayne started his company with his brother Gary as a sort of part-time mail order business specializing in rare and collectible records and memorabilia, and it grew to where they became one of the most respected record stores in the Los Angeles area, and they maintained that great reputation because compared to other similar places like pawn shops, for example, Rockaway inhibited the immense knowledge when it comes to specifically music memorabilia. Now, these days, it's not so much of a record store, but more of a showcase room since most of their business comes from online. But to tie it all in with KISS, with them being one of the most collectible groups with a myriad of products that, depending on which era it came from, such as the gold mine, that is the A coin era, they can appreciate big time in value. So this interview was a lot of fun because we talked about KISS collectibles. He showcased a notable piece that he had got recently from the last show at the Garden, and we did an overview of some of the KISS products that were available at the time of recording, but he also showcased some other cool rare posters and records as well. So while this interview was definitely KISS angled, if you're into the realm of collectibles in general, I think this interview will be very enjoyable, and it was certainly a fun one to do. I've done enough babbling, so without further ado, sit back, relax, and enjoy the interview. Okay, so the first question, obviously, how did Rockaway Records initially come to fruition?
Okay. Well, my younger brother Gary and I have been music lovers since we were 10 years old.
Cool.
Love music, never knew anything about collectibles. But my brother worked in a record store in Fullerton, California, and a local record store, nothing to do with collectibles. In those days, records and eight tracks probably. But he heard about this record swap meet in Hollywood on a
Mhm.
Saturday, once a month on a Saturday night, next to the Capitol Records building, the
Mhm.
round building in Hollywood.
Yeah,
It was a public parking lot right next to it. And it wasn't an official swap meet, but it was very well known. And people with record collections would pull into the parking lot, pay their $5 to park, open their trunk, and start selling records. And my
hmm,
brother heard about this, and he just was curious and wanted to go see it. And I'll be honest with you, I was pretty young then, in my 20s. I
sure.
just didn't really want to go to a swap meet on a Saturday night. I was single. I had better things to do. So, so after about 6 months of him bugging me, I finally said, "Okay, Gary, let's go check out this swap meet." And it just opened our eyes. I didn't know used records had any value.
Sure.
We were seeing records that I had in my collection and that to listen to that are 50 or $100, which was a lot of money in those days. Those
Yeah.
records that are 50, 100 back then are now thousands probably. But it really opened our eyes and it got us interested. So we started going to yard sales and garage sales and picking up used records. We didn't know what we were doing. We picked up a lot of junk, mainly junk,
Sure.
but we did pick up some good stuff. And we actually set up at the next month at that Capital Swap meet. And I remember we made $400 that day, and I was
Wow.
blown away. And then the following month, we learned quickly. We didn't know anything to begin with, but we learned fast. So by the second time we set up there, we made like $2,000.
My
So I was
gosh.
in heaven. It was like, this is great. We love music, and it was just a hobby. It
Yeah.
doing that in my basement. It was just I was working full time, and this was just a hobby, but it exploded. I mean, well, the way it exploded was when we did our first ad in Goldmine magazine.
Mm,
You familiar with Goldmine?
absolutely.
Yeah, well, at least back in the day, it was the Bible of record collecting.
Yeah.
And we did an ad in there. We had, remember to this day, uh, I bought a pallet load of Toto picture discs. It was
Huh.
a promotional picture disc, which at the time was very, very rare and selling for $75.
Oh,
You know,
geez.
which it was rare because they'd never distributed them. They were sitting in a pallet at Fitzgerald Hartley, the company that made them.
Sure.
And they sold them to me for like $2 a piece or something.
Oh,
So I put them in gold mine for like $15. The phone would literally rang off the hook daily.
wow.
I mean, I was sitting at my desk like this, one call after another. I'll take
Sure.
2 of them. I'll take 3, all over the world. You know,
Really?
yeah, because it was well in those days. Picture discs were the hottest collectible. You know, late
Sure.
70s, early 80s. You know, there were picture discs then that sold for like $200.
Sure. Well, even like back in I don't know if it was in England only, but like Iron Maiden, they did a lot of die cut picture discs as well. Like that was the big oh dude.
Oh yeah,
That
and this
was
is
not
signed by
scripted.
all 5 of them. So,
Jeez, that's ironic.
yeah, so the business just grew and grew, and uh, after about 2 years, well, actually, after a few months, Gary quit his job. You know,
Okay.
he had a minimum wage job at a local record store, so he quit pretty quickly. I kept my job. I was afraid to quit. I had a full time job, but I got to the point where I would work 8 or 10 hours doing the record business, and then I'd go do the night shift at work for another 10 hours. I said, "This is too much." So finally,
Sure.
I quit my job, and it just kept growing. And then it was mail order only, mail order, and doing the record shows. But then in 1982 or three, we bought a small record store called
Okay.
Rainbow Records, which is just down the street from where we are now.
Okay.
Well, we had the combination, the mail order and the record store. And in the 80s, the business was just skyrocketing. The
Yeah, I
store
can
we bought
imagine.
was 700 square feet. We lasted 2 years. We moved to a 2,000 square foot place. We lasted a couple of years there, and then we bought a building that was 3,000. We outgrew it before we even moved in. and,
Jeez.
and then we moved to the building we're in now, which is about 10,000 square feet, and became the biggest record store in LA. This was before Amoeba came to town. They came
Sure.
a
Yeah.
year later. But we were like 10,000 square feet. And I'll be honest with you, I learned bigger is not better.
Understandable, and
Yeah.
quite frankly, I don't want to step on Amoeba's toes. I went there once when I went to California. It's hype. I'm
Yeah.
sorry.
I mean, but I'll be honest with you, that's what kind of made me want to grow bigger. When I walked into their San Francisco store, and it blew my mind. You
Sure.
know, I just walked in the door and saw how big it was, and I was just totally impressed.
Hmm.
But, now I know what you're saying. You look and, there might be 30 copies of the same bad record in the
Yeah.
bins. And, they do get good stuff. Don't get me wrong. I mean,
Sure. Like,
they're
you know what
great
it was? When I went, I was looking at the pillars. That's where like the holy moly stuff is, because that's immediate where I'm like, all right,
right.
what exactly is here? But real quick, I wanted to jump back a little bit to when you had started out with your brother and all. At the time, what were like, I mean, because I was born in 97, so I did not live to see like the glory years of the whole industry at the time. But like, what were some of like the notable, like most valuable, highly sought after records of the time back then? And has it really changed to what
Oh,
is in most
drastic,
wanted now?
drastically changed. Yeah. Back then, the hottest, most desirable records were probably 50s records.
Mm,
50s records were hotter than even Beatles were just beginning to get expensive.
sure.
It was yeah, and of course, like I said before, picture disc and colored vinyl and promotional records. People like stuff like that.
Yeah. Like whether like a radio station promo or like a
Exactly.
white label promo. Okay.
Yeah. That's kind of one of the reasons why we became so popular so fast because business wasn't international like it is now. With the internet, it's like there's almost no boundaries anymore.
Yeah.
People buy from all over the world and that. But it was like records that were common in Los Angeles, say the new David Bowie promo 12-inch. No big deal in LA. In England and Germany, they were. They couldn't find
Yeah.
them. So that's the kind of stuff I was listing in Goldmine, and business just kept growing because I had a plentiful supply here in LA. It's like all the record company people, they come to me, and I hate to say it, but they given all these records to use for promotion. They give out a few for promotion and sell the other half to stores like me.
Sure. Yeah.
You
Yeah.
know, in those days, when the CDs started coming out, this was A couple years later, the CD market exploded, and we would have in our used bins probably 35 out of 40 the top 40 CDs. And
Mm,
sometimes we would have CDs in our used bin before they were released. So, the
damn.
record company people would come up with box. They probably made more money selling promos than they did from
Sure. Well, I guess too,
satisfying.
it really helps to have like those label connects, like you were saying, they would just give you whatever arsenal of stuff that they had.
Yeah.
It's impressive. But what was the transition? Because obviously you guys had opened up the physical store location and you guys had moved a couple times. What was the transition from being a standard brick and mortar shop to being just specializing in memorabilia and collectibles?
Well, the reason we bought the store was because a lot of times I'd go for a big collection and it's like you got to take it all or none. And besides the good collectibles, there were a ton of, well, in those days, $1 to $5 LPs,
Hmm.
which not worth the time to list by mail order. It was just too labor intensive. So
Hmm.
this was the perfect complement to our mail order business. So it was a place to get rid of all the cheap stuff. And we did a pretty good volume selling the collectibles out of the store. We got a reputation really fast for having
Sure.
the best collectibles in LA. So we were selling the collectibles in the store as well as Goldmine magazine.
Wow, that's pretty impressive. Just so viewers have an idea on the wow factor that you guys bring to the table, what are some of the notable pieces that you guys recently acquired that are up for grabs on the site or to be added to the site?
Okay, you want me to show you them now?
Yeah, go for it.
Okay, here's one. It's
You know, I saw a photo of this in the press release. What? Who
it's a
signed that?
Gibson guitar signed by Jimmy Page and Robert Plant,
Oh,
who, by the way, both are customers of Rockaway. Jimmy's
really?
Jimmy's been in a couple times. Robert was only in once.
Oh, geez. Does now? I mean, I know that Jimmy he's also like a record guy too. Like, is he a regular dude that just
A big
whenever
fan.
he's on the West Coast, he just comes by? Or
Yeah. Well, actually, I met him in London. I used to
okay,
do record shows in London, and he was a regular there at the Olympia Record Show.
okay,
And funny story, I'll tell you if you got another minute.
yeah, of course, all the time.
I used to set up there at sell. I bring stuff over to England to sell.
Yeah.
And I was at my booth talking to an old friend, and I had a Led Zeppelin concert flyer from 1969 in Pasadena
Oh,
up for sale for like $300. And I was talking to my friend, this guy, goes, "Can I see this?" And I didn't recognize him. I handed it to him, and unfortunately, kind of ignored him, because
sure.
I was talking to an old friend, and he handed it back to me, walked away. And my friend said, "You know who that was?" I said, "No idea. That was Jimmy Page."
Oh God.
Luckily, the next table he walked to happened to be a friend of mine, and he said to him, he knew him, and he said, "Who's that guy next to you? He has some great stuff." So he came and introduced me in that, and we talked a bit in that,
Wow.
and he came by like 2 or 3 more times over the next 2 days to look at that. Didn't want to buy it. Finally, I said, "Here, Jimmy, take it," and that did it. So we became kind of friends after that,
Oh wow.
and so he appreciated that. He got a great picture of me and Jimmy, which he didn't like to do at the show because he's there shopping.
He's
So
there for himself. Yeah.
exactly. So so I did that and got to know him, and I think I saw him a couple more times at future shows. He did buy more stuff, and then I told him, "Hey, Jimmy, if you're ever in LA, come by." And he came by a couple times, and he was like a kid in the candy store. he,
That's
he sat
awesome.
he sat in my office for about an hour going through records, bootleg records, Led Zeppelin and Dylan, and
Uh
he bought all
that,
kinds of stuff. You know,
I always see like those candid photos sometimes online of like Jimmy Page at some random record store, and it's just like he's one of us. That's so
yeah,
cool.
and he's a down to earth, really, really cool guy. You know,
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I
very,
know
very nice.
yeah, he's got that, that rock god aura around him that I mean, and understandably so, that many people look up to them for, but like
He
he's just
didn't
one of
act like
us.
it though. There's other people, other stars who I won't name that I don't think are as important that act like they are. So, but yeah,
Oh
he's very cool.
gosh.
So that's one of the items we just got recently.
Okay.
Let's see. You want Showtime? Show you a few more.
Yeah, dude, please, by all means. This is a means for people to come out and check out your shop and go on the website. What that's an
This
Iron
is a
Maiden.
Iron Maiden picture disc, which just
Okay.
happens to be signed by the 5 main guys.
Oh,
Yeah.
Jeez.
Yeah. I've actually got quite a few Iron Maiden items in stock. Last year, I actually went to Scotland to buy an Iron Maiden collection.
Really?
The guy used to work for them, so he was here
Oh,
touring.
okay. So it was all kind of
Yeah, the
within the
most
circle.
amazing stuff, autographs, tons of really cool guitar picks. People don't realize it, but guitar picks can be very valuable.
Oh yeah, listen, I have a good friend. Her name's Emma. She has a YouTube channel called 8 Vinyl Low. She is a massive guitar pick collector.
Yeah, the right ones. And they be honest with you, most of them from the last 20, 25 years have very little value
Really?
because the guitar once eBay came along, the guitar techs became aware of the market.
Oh,
So
really?
instead of ordering, maybe a couple of hundred picks for the guitars, they'd order an extra thousand and start selling them.
Wow,
But in
jeez.
the 80s, that wasn't happening. So
Oh, of course
80s
not.
picks
No.
were these the ones I got were all from the 80s and they did phenomenal. That's what
Yeah,
people want. It's
but
like you
then
pick a group like Kiss, you know, the ones from the last 10, 20 years, you're lucky to get $5 or $10 for them. But you get some of the
yeah, mostly.
70s, 80s, some of them are hundreds or more.
That is true.
Big,
I think
big difference.
once the internet came in, not even just for like guitar picks and all that such, but just
Everything
commerce
changed.
in general, it's crazy. It's the Wild West. Anything goes.
Oh yeah, yeah. Well, another example with guitar picks is, uh, I forget which tour it was, but on one of Madonna's tour, she played guitar for a couple of songs, so they did make guitar picks for her, which was very rare because she's not known as a
Yeah,
guitarist.
sure.
So I've got a few of them in, and they were selling for 50 to $100. Then
Wow.
all of a sudden, the guitar tech called me. You want 500 more of them? so, so
Gee.
so now they're worth about $2.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah,
I,
quantity
I'm
makes a big difference.
I'm curious. And I ask this just because Rick Nielsen of Cheap Trick is just
Right.
known to just throw out handfuls.
Yeah.
It's relatively easy. What's the value on something like of a Rick Nielsen guitar pick?
Cheap trick guitar picks are the least valuable.
See,
I mean,
that's what I was thinking, and that's not a dig or any disrespect, but literally, I saw Cheap Trick, oddly enough, in Chicago at the Metro, and I was right at the edge of the stage, and he went and grabbed a handful. I just held up my beer cup, and I'm like, "Let's see what happens." And sure
yeah.
enough, I got a couple.
Oh yeah. Now, if you find any from the '70s, they're
Sure,
probably
yeah,
going to
yeah,
be
yeah,
valuable. But once they got popular in that, he's really well known for doing that. So
yeah,
anybody has cheap trick picks, I don't even look at them.
yeah.
So,
It's like whatever.
yeah, exactly.
Ah, I totally get that. Now, I guess and this is a huge question that and because you guys hold this high reputation down to your expertise of music and memorabilia and just everything in between, do you think that having that immense knowledge gives you a certain amount of leverage compared to, let's say, like an auction house that might encompass collectibles of all types, not just music, but art, history, etc. And maybe in some cases, I don't know if that sacrifices a little bit of the intricate details in order to cover all that. Um, what aspect do you think has contributed to your guys' success over the years and has given you guys the reputation you have?
Yeah. Well, two things. I mean, the knowledge, of course, is very important.
Hmm.
Between my brother, myself, and a couple of my employees, I don't want to brag, but I think we have more collectible knowledge than any business in the world. And you're talking about billion-dollar auction houses that
Sure,
tons of mistakes
I can
and
imagine.
don't always get the best price. I mean, I'll be honest with you, the auction houses are probably my biggest competitors for
Is that so?
getting quality stuff. And in
Okay,
my business, selling is the easy part.
always.
It's easy to sell the good collectibles. You price them right, they're going to sell. It's
Yeah,
getting the great collections is not always easy. People like to think that, oh, an auction house is the way to go. I'm going to get big money for it. I'll give you a couple examples. A few years ago in Julian's auction house, you familiar with them? One of the
I've
biggest,
I've heard of it. Yes.
probably close to $1 billion company.
Yeah.
Anyway, they had a John Lennon belt buckle. They listed it, belt buckle owned by John Lennon. Real simple, no more details. Luckily, I happen to know the whole story. I knew who put it in there and the details.
Ah.
I won it for $4,000. Sold
Okay.
it a month later for $15,000.
Oh,
The consigner got a after fees probably made $2,500, after about 6 months of waiting. If he came
Sure.
to me, I would have given him 10 grand on the spot for that buckle. You know, they did a wonderful
Sure.
job. They just listed it, didn't have any details. In 5 minutes, I found 5 pictures of John wearing that belt buckle and
Yeah,
told him the
that's
story
your
of why it
verification
was
right there.
important to him and that, and it made all the difference in the world. And
Um,
and there's been a lot of other examples like that. I bought posters on in the auction houses for I think I bought a Pink Floyd poster last year for 800, sold it the next day for 5,000. They just forget
Bless.
details. They try to do so much and they don't always do a great job. But
Yeah,
on
it's like they're almost at a race to keep up with what's coming in and what's able to get out. Whereas with you guys are putting in, you have the right tools to do this successfully, but also still make money on top of that, which is fantastic.
but occasionally they do get great money for things,
Sure,
and they have a great publicity department. So
sure,
when you see the ads for the auction houses, sold this for 50,000, this for 80,000, they're realistic results, but they're like 1% of the things they sell. It's like 90% of the things they people consign to them, they would do better coming to me, as good or better in a
sure.
lot of cases. Those are prime examples. And they don't always go for those prices. I mean, just because it goes one time, it doesn't mean it's going to go the second time. Perfect example. Last year, Heritage Auction sold a Beatles concert ticket, 1965 shade ticket, very rare.
But yeah.
They got $30,000 for it and it had tape on it, wasn't even mint. I
Ah.
had a pristine mint one in stock. So I sent it to them for the next auction, went for 5,000. Yeah. It's
Oh,
hit and miss. Auctions are hit and miss. It's
they
like
really are.
they had two people that wanted to pay, probably two billionaires that didn't care what they spent. But the third bidder was way down below, and that's what it's going to go for next time. Or here's another example. This is a poster from the Monterey Pop
Monterey
Festival.
Pop, yeah.
You familiar with it?
Yeah, as a matter of fact, I have somewhere in my collection, I have a compilation of artists that played at the fest, and it has that poster on the front cover. Yes.
Yeah, it's probably the most important rock concert in history. It doesn't get the publicity of Woodstock, but this was a
Yeah,
couple years before Woodstock. Very, very important.
sure.
Anyway, this poster is not super rare, but in this condition, it is. This is the
I was
best
gonna It
known copy
looks
in the world.
beautiful from where I'm seeing. Also, I don't know if it's because it's in the like the plastic sleeve, but does it have like a foil finish to it,
Yeah,
or
it is.
is it?
Yeah, but it's a foil poster. Yeah,
Wow.
which is why it's hard to find them in mint condition like this.
Sure.
But anyway, Heritage sold one for not quite as good as this for $30,000.
Wow.
Following auction, the next one went for 8,000. Oh,
Yeah, that's so odd.
it's
Yeah.
hit and miss. Yeah, well, like I said, it happens all the time. I mean, another example, one of the rarest Rolling Stones records is Street Fighting Man, which I just sold for $30,000 last month. Well,
Really?
it's actually not the record; it's the picture sleeve.
Yeah, I was gonna ask if it was the
The
sleeve.
record's worth
Okay.
$2 because it was a big hit, but
Sure.
the picture sleeve was withdrawn. So
Oh my.
it's one of the first really big dollar records I sold back in the '80s. But back then, big dollars was $1,600.
Sure. And
Anyway, I
these.
sold one last month for like 30 or 35 grand. But
My
Heritage sold
God.
one about a year ago for 80 grand. And
Oh,
another collector could sign one thinking he could get big money. And he was very disappointed. It went for like 20 or 25 grand.
that is so
So
interesting.
yeah, I would
Yeah,
have paid him as
it's
much as he netted after the auction. I would have paid as much, if not more, for it.
my
So like I
gosh.
said, auctions are hitting it. eBay's the same thing too. People
Yeah.
think another story. One time I had somebody with a rare Beatles record, a
Mhm.
local guy, local collector. He brought it to me, and I offered him $2,000 for it. He said, "Nah, why should I sell to a deal? I'll just put it on eBay." I bid $2,000 on it. Got it
Mhm.
for $350. Nobody bid against me.
Sure.
He ended up with about 250, where I was waving 2 grand cash in front of him.
Yeah. Well, I,
So
I'm I'm curious. What Beatles record was that?
it was actually a George Harrison picture sleeve. Love
Oh,
comes to everyone.
okay.
Again, the record is pretty worthless, but a withdrawn picture sleeve. The picture sleeve market is very, very strong.
Oh, 100%. I mean,
Oh
not
yeah.
9 times out of 10 when I go to record stores and I look at 7 inches, it's just all the basic, white paper sleeves and everything, and they have the picture ones off to the side. It's adds to the value. I mean, I totally understand it, but I totally agree with what you're saying about just how auctions are and with eBay and everything. Because I remember, I'm a big White Stripes Jack White fan,
Oh wow.
and he has this he has the Vault subscription service with his label, and some of the releases go for a good bit of money because they're so limited and it's only mail order. And some eBay seller had put a bunch of them up for auction on eBay, and the starting bids were so nice. I was like, I got to take advantage of this, and there was nobody going in on it. Like, it went so under the radar. I got a lot of this stuff for so cheap. Like, it's weird how it works.
Yeah, it's like a lot of people that list stuff, they don't know how to list it properly. They forget the important details.
Yeah.
Where a competitor of mine one time found a $10,000 Beatles 45 for like 50 bucks.
Uh huh.
It was I want to hold your hand picture sleeve, which is very, very common.
It's
That
the
is
black and
the
white one, right?
Yeah, Desert Hoffman's
Yeah.
logo, very common.
Sure.
But this one happened to have it was a promo copy that had the picture of the WMCA good guys on the back, only 1,000 made.
Oh,
And he didn't mention that, but he did picture it. And somehow my competitor found it. I don't know how he did because there's probably 100 I want to hold your hand picture sleeves every day. But he
sure.
found it and got it for 50 bucks. Sold it for like 10
Uh,
grand. And a
my
lot of people
God.
make that mistake. People said, I'm just going to sell my own collection. Most are disappointed. And I hate
Sure.
it when you get calls from people that started selling their collection because all the good stuff is gone, which they
Sure.
sold too cheap. And they're stuck with the junk, which is
Oh, geez.
getting less and less desirable these days.
Yeah. But before we tackle some Kiss Center topics, I'm kind of curious. Do you have a large demographic of returning customers on a regular basis?
Oh, yeah. Oh, definitely. Oh, yeah. Yeah. We've had customers that have been with us we've been in business 45 years now. And I still have customers that started in the beginning. And unfortunately, a lot of them are getting older now, and some are selling their collections before anything happens. But
Sure.
hate to say it, but a lot of them are passing on, and their widows are selling us their collections.
Yeah.
I mean, most of our customers have told me that if anything happens to me, I've already told my wife who to call because most dealers in this business don't pay the money we do for the good collection.
Sure.
It's like the
And
great stuff I want. I'll pay what it
sure.
takes.
And listen, and I'm sure just down to that fact, like that you guys usually pay much better than your competitors. People know that, and they can go to you guys with confidence.
And
Um,
they
is there
know
a
that we're going to pay a fair price whether you know it or not because these widows don't have any idea of the value. So
sure?
their husbands know that we can be trusted. Like
Yeah.
just last year, I bought a collection in Texas worth about $700,000. I went there. The guy basically told me, just take it and send me a check for whatever's fair. He trusted us that much. Even
Wow.
though I gave him a $200,000 down payment,
Sure.
he wasn't expecting it, but I did that anyway because I knew it was
Wow.
a valuable collection.
Yeah.
We've got that kind of reputation, and
That's the, and
it
that
pays
makes for
off.
fantastic business.
Yeah.
Um, I guess my two other questions before we tackle the Kiss stuff. Out of curiosity, do you guys have like any young buyers that are really into this stuff to fork out big bucks for collectibles, such as a signed Page and Plant guitar, or is it more so just
That's
older
gonna probably
collectors?
be older people, but well, I mean, older is a relative term. I mean,
I got you.
it's kind of like the Beatle collectors are now in their late 60s to
Yeah.
70s and that. But what's becoming hotter now is punk stuff, grunge
Yeah.
stuff. Those are younger people compared to the Beatle people, but they're in their 40s and 50s now. And that's
Sure.
the younger demographics that are spending big money. I mean, the punk
Sure.
stuff is Beatles stuff. I hate to say it, but the common Beatles stuff is actually dropping in value.
Is that so?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Too many collections hitting the market. The rare stuff is kind of stabilized. The rare stuff is holding its value,
Yeah.
and will probably go up in the long run. At the moment,
Sure.
it's stagnant. On the other hand, punk stuff is going crazy. Give you
Yeah.
an idea. You remember the Misfits?
Oh, of course.
Yeah. Okay. Their first record, Cough Cool,
Hmm.
years ago, that was $500 to $1,000. In the last year, I've sold 3 copies. The cheapest one was 6,000. The best one was 12,000. That's how much that's gone up in 10 years.
That's crazy.
The
Yeah, and
funk
I can
stuff is
imagine
so
you were.
high.
I can imagine you had mentioned grunge stuff too is in big demand. I was looking at your website, and you have a signed 8x10 of
Nirvana.
Nirvana with all three guys.
Yeah, yeah. I actually bought 3 signed items that week. Another photo almost like that, a CD, and both of those sold instantly. The other
Wow,
photo I sold for 10 grand. So I raised this one to 11. The other one sold too quick.
wow.
Yeah, Nirvana stuff is like gold.
Oh, I can imagine as time progresses, it becomes more scarce, and it's like the golden goose. I can imagine.
Oh yeah. Yeah, any of that early grunge stuff,
Yeah,
Pearl Jam as well, Alice in Chains,
sure.
Soundgarden, all that stuff is. I'd rather have a grunge collection than a Beatles collection. I hate to say, even though I grew up with the Beatles,
well,
and it's
well,
been
I guess like
the
after
biggest
looking
part of
at
our business.
Well, you know what? I think like after looking at Beatles collections for what, more than 40 years, you need a little refresher.
Oh yeah, it gets boring. But while on the subject of Beatles, do you want me to show your audience the Beatles butcher cover? They always find that interesting.
Please do.
You're familiar with the butcher cover, right?
You got it.
Okay, here we go. This is probably the most legendary collectible record
Oh
in
yeah.
music history. On the other hand, it is not rare. People think it's rare. It is not.
Well, how many copies would you say? I mean, because obviously the story goes is that it came out, then the uproar because of the nature of the cover, then they recalled it, put
Right,
the trunk cover as they call it.
right.
How many like
Well,
have there been?
they made about 1,000,000 copies, which is why it's not rare.
Sure.
But they did about 99.9% of them went back to the company
Yep.
and had the trunk cover pasted on top.
Taste over. Yep.
So the rare ones are what you call first date butcher covers.
Yes.
1/10 of 1% that did not get covered over. Those are 1,000 times rarer. So the
Sure.
prices are drastically different. Like this one here, this one's what we call a third state because it's been peeled. It's been
Yes.
peeled beautifully.
I was gonna. That's from the screen here. That's the best peel job I've ever seen.
Yeah, but this one's worth, I think I had it priced at about $2,500. On
Wow.
the other hand, if this was a first date like this, open, it'd be worth 10 to 15,000. I sold a sealed one first date last month for 35,000.
Sealed first date.
Yeah, sealed first date mono. Now, stereo's much rarer. I sold my
Sure.
last
Yeah.
I sold my last sealed stereo first date for $80,000 a few years ago. And today, I would gladly buy it back for 80,000 because I know I could sell it for a minimum
Yeah. You know what you can
minimum
get.
of 100, maybe even 125,000.
Yeah. The idea of a sealed first date to me just sounds like a fairy tale. Like that's insane.
Uh, and that was one of my biggest business mistakes I made back in the 80s. Um, I had someone that had about a 15 sealed first date butcher covers that he offered me. He was actually the son of Alan Livingston, who was the president of Capitol Records.
Oh. Okay. All right.
And he offered them to me a few days before the Beatle Fest in LA, which was a
Okay.
big event in those
Yeah.
days.
Yeah.
I was so busy. And I made the mistake of telling him, yeah, I'm interested. Uh, bring him to the Beatle Fest for me. And he did. But he opened the box at my table. People swarmed around. So
Like
instead of
pigeons in
buying
Central Park.
15 of them, I ended up with about two or maybe 4 or 5 of them. He was
Oh my.
charging $1,000 for the monos and 3,000 for the stereos. And like I said, it was all people I knew, friends. I said, okay, you
Sure.
could buy one, you could buy one. And
Oh
I
my
got a few
god.
of them. That was just a dumb mistake I made. I should have said, yeah, come to my
Me,
shop.
me, me at a private spot. Yeah.
Yeah, live and learn.
Yeah.
Uh,
Oh, that's crazy. Obviously, since we're doing this interview for the Council of the Elder series, talking all things Kiss, it's time to tackle some Kiss stuff. Before we go into collectibles and memorabilia, are you a Kiss fan?
Not particularly. I mean,
Okay, I respect it. I respect
you
it.
know, like I mean, I did go to see him in concert. It was an amazing concert,
Yeah.
and you know, I like the hits and stuff like that. I mean, who doesn't like, you know, I want to rock and roll all night and things like
Yeah.
that. But I mean, they're not one of my favorites.
I respect that entirely. Now I'm curious. I feel like I might know the answer, because obviously you were getting into the the collectibles game, relatively like while Kiss was kind of peaking around like late '70s, and obviously the merchandise machine was generating so much stuff. I mean, you have the makeup kits, you have the Marvel comic, you have the dolls, you have the pinball machine. Were you kind of tapped into that at the time, or was it a thing where as time went on, that stuff started to really appreciate in value?
Well, we were always selling that stuff. I mean, it was
Okay.
definitely much more plentiful in the '80s than now. I mean,
Hmm.
I love the Kiss memorabilia from the '70s.
Yeah,
You know, the later stuff, not so much.
understandable. Yeah.
But the '70s stuff does really, really well. I just sold a beautiful Kiss lunchbox for like $800 or something like
Oh,
that. It was one of the nicest ones I've
yeah,
seen.
yeah, yeah,
You know, I mean, condition is everything.
yeah.
People don't get it. That's one collection I'd love to get, a collection of original Kiss memorabilia.
Well, that was actually going to be my next question. Uh, have you ever encountered any Kiss collections, or like someone that had a bunch of notable stuff, or are you still waiting for that
Oh,
to?
we've had a few. I mean,
Okay,
none is big, nothing like Beatles collections. We're known for Beatles and Stones, so we get
sure.
way more of that stuff. But we've
Yeah.
had a few interesting Kiss collections, and more so, a lot of collections, like bought a collection in Vegas not long ago. He was into heavy metal,
Okay.
mainly Megadeth, Metallica, but he had a bunch of great Kiss stuff too,
Yeah.
you know. And but I get it in but dribs and drabs,
Now,
not enough. I'd love to get a whole display and make fill up a few display cases. The stuff is just so cool.
yeah, I mean, for the there is that major hub for collectors of all the like '70s stuff. They call it a coin era because obviously
Right.
Bill Coin was the manager, and that's the marking of all that stuff. Um, you had mentioned a collection from Vegas, and there was some Kiss stuff in there. Do you remember what was in there by any chance?
Um, there were a few of the nice dolls in the box.
In the
Uh,
box. Okay.
yeah, still in the box, which are, you know, they're pretty hard to find. Well,
Yeah.
they do come in, but usually the boxes are beat up. These are really
Yeah.
nice. And he had the Kiss record player
Nice.
and a bunch of early T-shirts and posters. They're
Ah,
pretty cool. You know, anything from
really?
the '70s does well. You know,
Like, was it once they started to pick up fame, those posters? Because I know that there's some stories out there of posters from back when they were a club band, back around like Amityville, New York, and such in Queens. Like that stuff is so valuable. But like, do you remember like what?
nothing that valuable now. I mean,
Okay,
some of
I
those
got you.
early posters are many thousands of dollars.
Sure.
You know, he unfortunately he also had a ton of stuff from the '80s and '90s. And I
Okay.
hate to say it, but most of that stuff was so cheap. I mean,
Yeah.
you believe how cheap it went for? Like there was this great big set of busts. They were this big that sold of, you know, 4 different ones, one of
Yeah.
each. I think they sold he paid like $200 for them 20 years ago or
Sounds
something.
about right.
I think I ended up getting 50 bucks a piece for them. It's like nobody cares.
Wow.
You know, it's like, well, the thing is, it never stopped. I mean, Gene Simmons is a marketing genius. I'll
Oh, he
give him
is.
that. I mean, he's made so much stuff and it keeps selling. Every year there's what, 5 more sets of Kiss figurines and
Yeah.
it's
I mean, what? I think he said on record, what, 3,000 different licenses?
oh, at least I would think more.
Well, hell,
I mean,
listen, you may think this is a running gag, but it's true. At the Kiss World Monster Mini Golf place in Vegas, I I, I don't recall seeing it there because I visited it a couple years ago. But you could literally buy, and I swear, quote unquote, Kiss air guitar picks,
really?
and it's mind boggling. It's just
No,
the logo with a little plastic closure, and there's nothing.
no, it's crazy. And unfortunately, you know, 90 to 95% of that stuff in the last 25 years is just gonna be worth very, very little.
And
Few
the thing is,
exceptions.
like, I and I see it too because when I got into Kiss when I was I shit you not, 2 years old when I was when I
Wow.
oh yes. And you know what's funny? It's all because VH1 was showing them all the time because the farewell tour was going on and I was always gravitated. But at the same time, they had worked out a deal with Spencer's Gifts and they generated a lot of merchandise. And you know, for a young kid who wanted to get their hands on anything Kiss, that was always my one-stop shop. And there's even a Kiss podcast that refers to it as Spencer's crap, which I can understand because it hasn't appreciated good value in
Right.
recent years. I totally get it. But, you know, when it comes to collecting, I mean, yeah, like if you want to follow certain rules, that's fine. But like it's to each their own, however they want to approach it. But I totally get you on there. To be honest with you, I think some of the more valuable pieces of Kiss stuff, at least this day and age, has come with some of the vinyl pressings that they've been doing because they do they do this thing. It's so annoying, but also I see why they keep doing it. If an album celebrates an anniversary, they'll do an anniversary drop and they'll put like t-shirts and posters and stuff. They'll do a colored vinyl pressing, which they'll bundle it with merchandise because that's the way to get it. But then they do picture discs
Yeah.
where limited to 500 worldwide and they put it with like a jacket, whatever, 250 bucks. Sells out in 10 minutes.
I know. Yeah.
And and that is where the value is. Like those pressings, I see them on eBay. They go for thousand, you know, whatever. I don't know numbers statistically, but it's money hand over fist.
Yeah, it is, but that's the market that I think is gonna see a correction soon. Oh, too many people are doing it. It's like every new release that comes out has 4 or 5 different colors,
I'm
and
tired of it.
a lot of people are telling me that. It's like it's just so expensive just to keep up with the new releases. Like, I bought a Beatles collection a few years ago, and after McCartney's Egypt Station came out,
Oh yeah.
he called to thank me. He said, "You saved me $1,000. That's what it would cost me to buy all the different versions of Egypt
Oh my
Station." Which,
god.
I mean, I hate to say it, I love McCartney. He's my number 2 guy in the world, but it's an awful album, you know?
I'm curious who's number one for you.
Brian Wilson,
Oh, really?
yeah, he's my number 1
Oh,
guy.
I am a huge lover and admirer of Beach Boys and Brian Wilson. That to me, I always say that Pet Sounds was the album that made me appreciate music on a larger scale. Like I feel like that album made me get into other things that I never would have approached if it wasn't for that. So that's awesome.
Well, and you do realize that if it wasn't for Pet Sounds, it wouldn't be Sergeant Pepper.
Exactly.
Paul
Exactly.
McCartney's heard that album. Oh my God, what are we going to do now? And he
Yeah.
still calls it his favorite album of all times.
I
Yeah,
can see why.
yeah,
I totally
yeah.
get it.
So I appreciate Brian because he basically did by himself what McCartney, Lennon, Harrison, and George Martin did. He
Hmm.
didn't have the Beatles had 4 geniuses working there. He
Yeah.
didn't. The other guys had great voices,
100%.
minimal talent. I hate to say it, but
I respect it.
yeah,
Listen, I understand. I mean, think about it. You know, when the Beach Boys went into the studio, he was the one that said, "Sing your part like this." He showed the Wrecking Crew how to play their parts, and like because he knew exactly what he wanted. Yeah, he could have done it all, but like you see where the talent is and
oh
who
yeah.
he had on board. But yeah, he had something. He had something special.
The Wrecking Crew didn't even understand it. I met Hal Blaine, I actually bought his
Oh, did
collection,
you? Okay.
and he told me, the first time he was in the studio with Brian, and Brian's telling everybody what parts to play and how to do it. He said, "This guy is crazy," but then it came out perfectly. He organized it in his head, and
Yeah.
he blew away all these veteran musicians, and they couldn't understand how he was doing it.
Oh
He was
my
just so
god.
far ahead of his time.
If they only just got into his head and just knew what the hell he was talking about.
Exactly. So yeah,
Um,
now he's my number 1.
that's awesome. Yeah, I saw him in concert back in 2016, and that was the 50th anniversary of Pet Sounds. So before, and I'd seen clips of him like the last tour that he did, and I'm just glad I got to see him at least
Yeah,
once.
yeah.
That's
No,
a
the last couple of times I've seen him like 50 times in
yeah.
concert. I mean, I flew to London 3 times to see his concerts, like the
Uh,
opening of the Smile concert.
oh, you were there, Royal Festival Hall?
Oh yeah, yeah. It
Oh,
was
geez.
unbelievable.
Oh my
It's
God,
one of the
that's
greatest
awesome.
concerts in history. I
I
mean,
can
by
imagine.
the second day, McCartney, Clapton, and everybody was in the audience.
That's
It was just legendary, and it's amazing the way. he did amazing. I mean,
Yeah.
I've
And,
seen
and,
him
and he
so
pulled
many
it off
times.
too,
He
because
wasn't
there's
always great.
well, I
I've
mean,
seen one concert, he was amazing. The following week, he was awful. It was just,
yeah, it's
he's had problems in that, but he rose to the occasion for the London shows.
sure did. And plus, given the weight of that music too, I mean, for those that know the history behind
Oh, yeah.
Smile and everything, there was
40 years unreleased. Yeah.
there was a lot of weight there, and he pulled it off. Um, what would you say is the most impressive Kiss collectible you have sold?
Hmm. Can't really think of anything out of the ordinary.
Or like something notable?
Well, don't think I've had anything that's like big dollars, super valuable. I mean, I've had all the toys from the 70s
Sure, yeah.
all the time, and they're all pretty cool in that, but nothing steps out. I mean, I remember the sleeping bag was kind of cool.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Haven't seen too many of those. I thought that was very cool. I haven't seen one of those in actually 15 years. Are they
Sure.
still around? Do they still pop up or?
I think I may have seen it once, and that was it.
Yeah, me too. And I
Yeah.
probably had 20 lunch boxes over the years and
Sure. Yeah, yeah,
5
yeah.
record players and, but yeah, never had the ultimate Kiss collectible, which would be a poster from the early '70s. That's what I'm
Sure.
trying to get.
Is that a holy grail piece, or is there something else in mind that like you would hope that someone happens to have and would bring into the shop?
No, the posters are probably the best thing. The poster market is super hot right now.
Oh yeah.
So
Sure.
the prices on the posters are really going up. And
Sure.
um, actually, yeah, there was a poster I did sell. I'm trying to think of it. That Kiss opened. Yeah, there was a poster. I think Kiss. No, ACDC opened for Kiss, right?
Yeah, that was 77,
Yeah,
78,
yeah. Actually,
roughly.
yeah. I did sell one of those last year for about
Nice.
$5,000. Very rare poster. Nobody ever seen it before.
That's awesome.
Yeah, because ACDC was just starting out, so they were, second build.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that would probably be my best Kiss item that I've sold.
Yeah, there's a great interview clip on YouTube of Bon Scott. He was saying how Gene Simmons approached them at a club somewhere and was like, "Do you want to come out with us?"
Oh, really? Oh,
Yeah,
wow.
and that's how that came to be. That's a time travel thing for me if I could.
Very cool.
That's a great bill. Um, right, you had shown me real quick before we started recording. There is a framed piece
Oh,
behind
yeah.
you, and if you have any other Kiss things on hand that you want to show, please go right ahead. Some notable pieces that you have right now.
Yeah. This is a limited edition poster, only 20 made during their
Mm.
farewell tour, signed by the 4 guys who were in the band at the time.
And that's dated December 2nd, right?
Right, right.
That is the last show at the Garden.
Yep, and these were given away to the VIP ticket holders who
Mhm.
just happened to pay, I believe it was $5,000 for a ticket. So they
Sounds
gave us
about
this
right.
poster, which we're asking $1,750 for.
1,750. Wow.
Yeah, very rare poster and signed by all 4.
Yeah, and
Beautiful.
plus, given the importance of the day too. I
Yeah.
I was I was at the Garden for that show. I mean,
Oh, really?
albeit nosebleeds, like I was lucky to get in the building. I was happy with that, but that is a phenomenal piece.
Yeah, framed beautifully in that. That's the kind of thing that more than likely will appreciate and value.
Sure. That's awesome. I actually, I'll probably end up sharing some images in post production, but I'm actually on the Rockaway website, and I just searched up Kiss, and I just want to make mention of some of the stuff that you guys currently have. It's funny. I was looking at it last night, and I noticed you had a poster. It was the collectible, like numbered poster from the last show that I
Right.
think it sold. Like it must have sold overnight because I'm not
Yeah,
seeing it now.
sold yesterday. I saw it in the shipping department this morning.
Amazing. Yeah. You know what's funny? I actually have one of those. I bought it out of impulse. I'm not much of a poster guy. They're cool and I respect like the market and the collectability, but I don't go too nuts over it. It was just one of those things where because they opened up the merch lines early in the day before the show started. And
Okay.
I saw it and I'm like, yeah, that's kind of cool. And I had the cash, so I was like, whatever. So in terms of vinyl, and obviously Kiss vinyl collecting is rabid for a whole host of reasons. I mean, people go nuts over label variants. not just in the different labels that were used, but like if the text is
Oh
italicized, if
yeah,
the spacing,
big difference.
it's maddening. For me personally, I'm a huge bootleg collector, and if you've seen some of the Kiss stuff that's coming out now in the bootleg circles, you would think it's official. Let's just say that.
Oh yeah, yeah.
It's fantastic. But right now, I am looking at four different copies of the debut. Now they're both official original pressings without Kiss in time. One's for 150, one's for 250. I'm guessing the difference is condition.
Exactly. Yeah.
Okay. So that's up for grabs as of recording this. Then we have a 1977 record club edition from 75. Not from 75 for 75 bucks, but it's from 74. And then there's also a sealed club edition from 77 as well for 250, which is impressive. This is cool that it's still sealed. Kiss Symphony Alive 4, 3 LP set from 2003. I bought mine opened, and the vinyl was in great shape. The jacket was a little beat up. I think I paid like 125, but you can get a sealed copy for 450 bucks, which is pretty sick, and that's numbered as well. Kiss the Originals, 3 LP set of the first 3 albums, self-titled, Hotter Than Hell, Dressed to Kill, with all the inserts for 125. That's like trading cards, the book, and everything else. Now I'm curious. The next piece I'm going to mention, I'll ask about it because you showcased the poster. The golden ticket from the last show on at the Garden from December 2nd. Did that come with that poster?
Yeah. Well, the same guy sold it to me. I don't know if he got that with the poster. I think he said he bought they were available at the merch table, I believe.
So get this. After the show was done, I don't know what part of the Garden they were stationed at, but they were literally just giving them to random people. But the problem was so much of them made it out onto eBay and were being
Oh,
sold for thousands. And oddly enough, they were all sellers based out of New York. So it makes you wonder who staff at the Garden was probably in on something. That's my
no.
guess.
Yeah, probably.
That's crazy. 1987 promo label press, Japanese of Crazy Nights for 100. And then here's a cool signed piece. A It's a show at the Stone from April 23rd from the Revenge era, signed by the whole band, Gene, Paul, Bruce, and Eric. That's for 500 bucks, which is awesome. Um, do you guys usually do okay selling, dare I say, like unofficial stuff? Because there is the 12-inch picture disc of with masked artwork of Lick It Up. Um, are you guys finicky in terms of like official versus unofficial, or if there's value to it, do you take it?
Oh yeah. Well, the vinyl bootleg market is super strong.
Yeah.
The most valuable ones are going to be like the '70s ones, the old
Yeah.
trade market quality
Oh
color
yeah.
vinyl. Some of them are many hundreds, if not thousands of dollars.
Oh
You know,
yeah.
especially they got to be colored vinyl. The
Yeah,
color
I
makes them.
always see it's like some cool like swirly looking vinyl and
Those
such.
are the most valuable. I've sold some of those for like $2,000 each, by
But
Led Zeppelin, and I don't think I've had any super valuable Kiss ones. I'm not sure, but I would imagine there probably are some on trademark.
there's some notable early like 1970s Kiss bootlegs. Like there's Fried Alive, Destroys Anaheim. Those are like the ones like it's the printed colored sheet and just a plain white jacket. But I know exactly what like with some of those color presses, like they look stunning. They really do, and I can understand like why they're valued that way.
Yeah.
But for those that are curious, it's basically the Kiss Lick It Up cover, but with the makeup like superimposed, which is interesting. Um, Kiss MTV Unplugged. We have there were 2 pressings done in '96. There was the standard black, which is in shrink with the poster for 100. But yeah, if you want the more collectible colored variant, yellow vinyl 2 LP sealed for 250. Here is a really cool one that I really took notice of, and that is a signed 8x10 promo photo from Music from the Elder, signed by the full band. So Gene, Paul, Ace, and Eric Carr, which I think that adds some tremendous value given that Eric Carr is passed away back in '91, so that is pretty impressive. You wanted the best, you got the best. 2 LP sealed, original '96 press for 200. This is cool. Now I'm curious how you got these. These are the 1977 red vinyl pressings of Destroyer and Love Gun. Did those come from a massive collection based in England, or how did you acquire those?
Don't remember. Were those part of the box set? There was a big box set that came out with a bunch of different colored vinyls.
So that there's a couple of colored vinyl sets. There's one called the Originals that came out in the 90s.
No, not that one. We're late. Well, I could be wrong, but there was a big box set we got in that wasn't complete, and we split up. It had a bunch of colored vinyl LPs in it. I thought maybe it came in that.
Did
Not
it
too
come in a
sure.
did it nah, it couldn't have been Hysteria because that came in the road case and that was all black vinyl.
Oh, okay. Now I could be wrong. I'll be honest with you. The vinyl's not my department. My brother Gary and a couple of
Okay.
guys here deal in the vinyl.
I
I
got you.
deal more in the memorabilia, the posters, the
Yeah.
autographs, the fun stuff, I think.
Sure, yeah. No, listen, I totally got you on there. Last couple pieces that I'll mention. There's Love Gun, original 77 press with all inserts. That means the prop Love Gun and everything for 100. This is cool to see it sealed. I do have like a VG Plus near mint copy. Psycho Circus, the 2014 lenticular cover version. They only did that for the first run, and then they just did a standard jacket afterwards. Still sealed for 175. Hot in the Shade, 89 original press, still in shrink for 100. And last but not least, this one's pretty cool. 1978 double platinum, still sealed, albeit a corner clipping on the top corner for 200. So for any of you Kiss vinyl junkies like myself who go nuts over this stuff, that is what is up for grabs on at Rockaway Records. Now, for anyone that has collections that they want to part with, where do they go? What's the best way to get in contact with you?
Just contact, well, my direct email is wj@rockaway.com, or you
Okay.
can just go through the website, put it to my attention. But for a good Kiss collection, I'll go anywhere in the world.
All
If it's
right.
valuable enough.
You guys heard that.
Yeah,
If for any collection, he will go to you.
yeah, a valuable collection.
Valuable collection,
Not all the '90s toys.
not not
All the
not
'70s toys I want.
not so a coin era, not Spencer's crap.
Exactly. Yep, you got it.
That is awesome.
So there you guys go. That is the second episode of Council of the Elder, discussing Kiss Collectibles with Wayne Johnson of Rockaway Records. If you have suggestions on future episodes and who to have involved in this series, please shoot me a comment down below. I'd love to know. And if you enjoyed this video, please go ahead, give it a like, and subscribe to the channel. See you guys in the next video, and most importantly, keep the records spinning.